the University of Miami. The Higher Education Planning Committee welcomes you to Higher Ed Dreaming 2022. This is the first ever Dreaming event for higher education and brought to you by volunteers in the higher education community, and that is why we call it For Higher Ed by Higher Ed. I must share my excitement that we have over 600 members of the community registered for today's event. We would like to start our day with gratitude for all of the people who are making this dream a reality. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are delighted that you are all here and wish you a great experience and a day full of learning and networking. Our event would not be possible without a special group of Higher Education Advisory Council members and a close group of community members who volunteered to help. A special thank you to Doug Bennett, Dean Ernzen, Vera Friedrich, Nina Gomez Ferdandini, Kathy Lukeman, Carrie Marcinkevich, Brandel Unquich, Kathy Zimmerman, Tracy DePoy, Patrick McGlenn, Marissa Domino Burns, Haley Carroll, Nicole Callison, Vince Avato, Ryan Clemens, Danny Warman, and all of the Salesforce MVPs and so many others who share their expertise and best practices about hosting a community event. Now I'm going to turn it over to Carrie.
Hi, everyone. Today's sessions include thoughtful, innovative presentations by colleagues who are subject matter experts at their institutions. We are grateful for their contributions to our higher education community, and we would like to thank them for all their hard work that they did to prepare for this event. We have 34 representatives from 23 institutions today, and they include Arizona State University, Florida State University, George Mason University, Harvard University, Northeastern University, Olivet Nazarene University, Penn State University, Purdue for Life Foundation, Santa Fe College, Smith College, Tulane University, UMass Lowell, Universidad de San Andres, University of Alabama at Birmingham, University of Colorado, University of Florida, University of Iowa, University of Miami, University of Minnesota, University of Notre Dame, University of St. Thomas in Minnesota, University of Vermont, and University of Wisconsin-Madison. Over to you, Joanna.
Oh, right. Take a breath after that, Carrie. We'd also like to give a huge thanks to our sponsors, without whom today would not be possible. We'd like to thank them for their support and for helping us bring this dream to you, our higher ed community. We'd like to give a special shout out to those sponsors: Apex IT, Apsona, Attain Partners, Blackthorn, Cloud for Good, Copado, Huron, Form Assembly, Mass Mailer, Mowgli SMS, and Salesforce.org and the Trailblazer community. You can check our sponsors out in their 5 and 5 interview in your agenda or the demo jam, or you can go see them at their booths. Stop by, say hi, and learn about their products and services. If you go to one of their booths, you'll be entered to win one of 15 Salesforce certification vouchers. Over to you, Amjad.
Thanks, Joanna. Before I hand you over to Frank to introduce our keynote speaker, I want to thank one more group for helping bring Higher Ed Dreaming to life. I have a favorite quote that goes something like this: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." For several months, a small group of dedicated volunteers developed a vision and a plan to produce this event. All of this work happened after hours and on weekends, above and beyond their regular work. I would like to express my gratitude to my colleagues and friends who belong to the 7 p.m. Mondays and Thursdays Club: Florence, Haley, Frank, Carrie, and Joanna. Thank you all. And now, without further ado, here is Frank Montoya.
All right. Thank you, Amjad. Very excited today to be here and kick this off, and really honored to introduce our keynote speaker. So let me start by saying welcome and good day, higher ed community and friends. Again, I'm honored to have the opportunity to introduce our inaugural keynote for this inaugural Higher Ed Dreamin' 2022 event. Today we have Susan Morrow, General Manager for the Education Cloud at Salesforce. She will share her ideas related to the hot topic of the Great Resignation and what that means for higher ed. But before we go there, I want to share a bit more about Susan. Susan is a technologist, servant leader, and advocate for the higher ed community. Susan is a data-driven executive bringing proven success to financial modeling, analytics, talent management, marketing, and operations. Wow, that's a mouthful, but that just means we have so much to learn from Susan. I've already learned so much from Susan these past few months via her engagement with the Higher Ed Advisory Council and in preparing for this Higher Ed Dreamin' moment. We are very lucky to have such a dynamic person kick us off, educate us, inspire us, and energize us. With that said, thank you for being here, Susan. Welcome. Let's do this. Take it away.
All right. Oh, it is just so exciting to be here. Frank, can you just confirm that you can hear me okay? I just want to make sure all's good.
All's good. I can hear you just fine, and I can see you just fine, and I'll be back when we are ready to engage.
Very good. Thank you so much for such a gracious introduction. And wow, it's really It looks like I did just lose you.
I think we're back.
Yes.
Okay, let's start this again. I apologize.
Okay.
I think we're back. So here we go.
Okay. You can just to confirm, you can hear me okay?
Everything looks good.
All right, very good.
And okay. I'm going to just stop my video, and that's all I'm going to do at this point.
Okay. Thanks again. Thank you so much to this amazing group who have been working so hard to put this event on. I'm incredibly honored and very fortunate to learn from the members of the Higher Education Advisory Council that has been putting the work behind this. I was also incredibly impressed by the list of individuals, many of whom I have had a great chance to learn from, as well as the partners who have been sponsoring this event. And since I made the shift from working within higher education to working for higher education at Salesforce, I've been so impressed with the contributions of volunteers, of customers who help us better understand how technology can help transform education. It's really an honor to be here, to have become the GM for Education Cloud last fall. And I'm still in the process of meeting many of you. So I included my contact information on this slide if you'd like to connect. So again, thank you all so much for joining today and continuing to contribute and learn from each other here at Higher Ed Dreaming. Okay, I'll admit I was intrigued when the organizing committee asked me to speak on this topic. Like all of you, I've heard this term used a lot, and it has made me wonder how accurately it actually reflects this moment in time. On this slide, you see a graph that notes the number of voluntary resignations that the Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks. That orange line is last year, it's 2021. And it certainly is startling. It makes sense why people are talking about this. But what does it really mean for higher education? Well, I think many of us immediately think about resignation in higher education and think about transition among our own staff, among faculty, about early retirement, certainly about additional difficulty filling already hard to fill roles, and I think a continued examination and a response to improving working conditions and compensation. All of those things are true. And this is an opportunity, I think, to revisit those realities. At the same time, I think there's something else here. I think that the popularity of the term Great Resignation is about more than those statistics. It's instead about something a lot bigger. And actually, I think it's about something that we know a lot about in higher education. The Great Resignation is part of a macroeconomic trend. And you see this in the quote from Adam Grant. It's about the future of work. These trends that we see, they didn't start with the pandemic. but they are certainly exacerbated by it. People are walking away from something, but they're walking away because they want to be walking toward something new. And something new always begins with education. Now, it might be brief, like finding a new job and searching on a job site, but usually moving towards something new means a much more substantial and sustained search and exploration. What should I be doing? Where could I go? Where should I go? How do I take what I already know and get to the next step? And what will that get me? That's what education is. I love this quote I'm sure many of you have seen before, that the purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. And I think that that has definitely been the case. I would also say that the use of education to reach gainful employment remains a very perilous path. Employers regularly cite concerns with the limitation of using college degrees specifically to sufficiently signal readiness for employment. Students increasingly face economic pressures that demand a very careful weighing of the value of a degree. This too is what the Great Resignation is about. Now, last year, the ECMC group released a report, Gen Z Teens Seek to Blaze Their Own Education Path. And their research really pointed to a tremendous mind shift about how we think about education and how we think about employment. I promise I won't read all of these things to you, but it's quite startling. Teens' likelihood of pursuing a four-year degree decreased 23%. 23% between May of 2020 and September of 2021. And you'll read that those high school students have very different ideas about what they expect to have happen. And more than a half of them were open to doing something other than a four-year degree. They believed that they could achieve professional success with education attained in 3 years or less. It's quite a bit different. And by the way, we won't feel the effects of that change in mindset for a while, but we can see it now and we can respond to it now. I want to share something else with you. Earlier this month, and I'm sure many of you saw this too, there was very startling news from the National Student Clearinghouse about what's been happening with high school students going directly to college. As they said, the rates at which the class of 2020 immediately enrolled in college have fallen by unprecedented levels, 4 to 10 percentage points dropping depending on the high school categories, with disproportionately large drops among high poverty and low income high schools. Now, that quote was taken from an article in Inside a Higher Ed about that report, as was this quote. I think that perhaps we can see the Great Resignation in higher education to be about growing support for a changing landscape. Before coming to higher ed, I was a secondary teacher, and $15 an hour was about what I was paid. If I work at Taco Bell, I could make about as much as teaching. One of those doesn't require a four-year degree. This is the conversation, and I'm sure many of you, like me, think of various reactions and thoughts to this. What I think is important about it is that it reflects a growing perception around the challenges that we face, and one that absolutely has been accelerated by the pandemic. What we see here is that all of those inequities that we find in society that we hope to improve with education, well, they may actually be being reinforced by the changes that we have in front of us. Now, we're talking about a skills gap, and understanding the skills gap is not new. It's not new for education. We have seen this coming. It's one of the reasons I wanted to share statistics from 2018. You see here that back then, high skill occupations, there was a gap of 25% between openings and available workers. We had already seen that there was a gap between how people were educated or prepared for work and the work that they were going to. That was true for 13% of what are known as middle skill occupations, which also require skill and experience. Where there continue to be challenges, however, where there's more supply than there is demand, or unfortunately, a lot more unemployed people, are in low skill occupations that have fewer openings. This report, by the way, is from Burning Glass from 2019. And we're going to continue to see a relationship between those workforce gaps and, of course, higher education. Employers have been aware of this, and they're working to remedy it. Now, this is data from the McKinsey Global Survey. Before the pandemic, 9 in 10 executives that they surveyed noted that they faced skill gaps already, or they expected to within the next 5 years. And in their most recent survey, they learned that, in fact, those same companies found the need to accelerate skill building in the midst of the pandemic. So again, these were trends that were true before. These were challenges we had before. But this moment in time has accelerated these changes. So employers are escalating and looking for more opportunities to educate and train their workers. Now, the idea of this, the idea of, as many of us have referred to it as lifelong learning, the need to continually learn and grow new skills, that too is not new. When the National Center for Educational Statistics reviewed educational patterns for working adults in 2016, they reported that more than 1 in 4 working adults already have a non-degree credential. More than 1 in 4 already had a non-degree credential in 2016. And most of those individuals prepared for the credential with classes that they took from educational institutions. So when we talk about alternative pathways between education to employment, I want to stress that this is a need that higher education has been meeting. Perhaps not enough, perhaps not fast enough, but we've already been here. So what's changed? Well, what's changing is that the demand has grown enormously. What you see here is a survey from best colleges around what workers currently expect. 68% of working Americans report that they expect to learn new skills for their career next year. That's an enormous percentage. And the details in this survey are very interesting because what we see is that workers expect to learn sometimes from their current employers, but for the most part, they're fueled by internal incentives. They're fueled by their own needs and their own desire to learn something new. That's what we do in education. And so one of the questions I have for all of you about this great resignation is, what are we doing about that? What are we doing to serve those students? Here's the good news about that. We know these students already. When I first started this conversation, and I noted that there were changes in attitudes among teenagers towards education. Well, that's important because we're going to see the impact of that later. And certainly, where they've increasingly expected to achieve their employment goals, it falls outside of a traditional degree. And they're not the only ones. The demand for non-degree credentials is actually strongest among those who have already earned their degree. So when we are looking at the breadth of things that we can offer in higher education, when we consider the need for credentials, for educational offerings that more closely align to employment, we see that the prospects include people that we already know are alumni. The opportunity is far greater there than I think we often give ourselves credit for. Now, with all of this need, with individuals wanting to skill up, with gaps in higher skill job openings and available workers, this creates a market pressure. So with all this growing demand, well, there's an increase in supply. Now, this quote is from a retired FBI agent who spent much of his career investigating education fraud, the selling of credentials from made-up universities. Now, in fact, we have seen enormous increase in the number and the complexity of offerings in this space. What we know, though, is that when markets have this kind of friction, this level of complexity for consumers, what really makes a difference is brand. Anyone who seeks additional educational offerings is likely to place much higher value on the same credential if it's provided by someone they know and trust. This is an opportunity and perhaps an obligation for traditional higher education to offer trusted options for pathways between education and employment. And those higher educational institutions that we come from, well, they can't move fast enough because there are right now nearly 1 million unique credentials. As a student who is learning, who is seeking opportunities to grow, we face an incredible marketplace, nearly 1 million credentials. Now, a good number of the credentials that are tracked, this is by Credential Engine, a good number of those credentials are from post-secondary institutions. But the greatest number come from non-academic providers. These are in the form of badges, of course completion certificates, licenses, certifications, and apprenticeships, and they absolutely include very valuable, trustworthy, and verified credentials. For example, Salesforce credentials and certifications and trailhead badges. There's a lot of room here, but there's also so much demand. There's so much demand. Now, and while there are some bad actors in every segment of post-secondary education, there still remains a very critical importance of growing the accessibility and the affordability, the quality and the relevance of options for post-secondary education. In 2019, the Lumina Foundation supported this very helpful and frankly very timely guidance about how to grow these options. And they came back and reinforced how important it is to offer as many possibilities for quality education because it is part of the drive for equity. There's a very important role here for those of us who believe that education can be, and it must be, the path to equity, to drive those changes to support growing options for students, for working adult learners, for all the students that we think of when we think of college students right out of high school. We absolutely need to grow the options for those students as a way to ensure a path to equity for everyone who is seeking education. This is a quote from Jeff Salingo, who of course is a respected higher education expert. Now, what he's noting here is that when we see all of these changes, traditional higher education is absolutely in the moment to be able to provide more accessibility and more options. And as he puts it, the runway is short. Now, what I would like to do is, first, is thank you, all the trailblazers who are involved in this, because this opportunity that we face, this opportunity to increase educational offerings, but high quality educational offerings, well, I think that challenge lays with people like you, with thought leaders, with technologists, with change agents within education technology. And perhaps if you heard that with my dog. More than most people, I know that all of you see how the need and the power of digital transformation in education is critical to achieve the potential for necessary change, to work for student success that is centered on the success of all students. Every one of you is a change agent with what you do every day. Every one of you is a trailblazer. So my ask of you, as I've gone through this update, this view on the Great Resignation, my ask of you is to turn your talent and your passion towards this moment, because this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to use technology towards increasing access and options. It's for the future, and it's for all of us. I'd like to take a moment, if I could, to collect some feedback from all of you about how you're seeing this, so you get a sense from your peers and your community about how they're seeing this opportunity. Is it just me, or is the Great Resignation about more than this? Now, I've put on the screen a connection to slido.com. I'm sure many of you have used this. If you haven't already, you can go into your browser to slido.com, and the code, the number is HEDreamin, Higher Ed Dreamin. You can also put your phone up to that QR code and go directly to the poll. And I'd like to bring this up. I have to switch very quickly. Let's take a look at where all of you are. Oh, and I think I just lost my connection.
I see and hear you, Susan.
Okay, good.
So
Very
you're
good.
You're good.
Thank you. And with that, let's go to see where all of you are with this poll. And just to confirm, you can all see that now.
Looks great.
Excellent. I wanted you to get a sense of how much this is happening among your peers and what you're seeing. How much have you seen the demand increase for options outside of a traditional degree program? We're seeing a lot of demand. And I know not all of you are working directly within an institution, but please pick the most recent institution you've worked with. Okay, and excellent. You see a lot of demand. I see about 53 responses here. Oh, we see more people coming in. Very good. Good. Some are not seeing much demand at all. I think that's important to note. I want to go to the next question. We can come back to this. And this is an open text question, if you would, because I know many of you are doing this. Many of you have been working to expand offerings already in your institutions. You have non-degree offerings. I think it would be interesting to see what those look like. If you could share, again, with your colleagues, what you're already doing. Yes. Continuing education, executive education, badges, certificates. Licensure, I think that's very, very important. And in fact, the demand remains very strong among healthcare professionals as well. Youth programs and continuing education. Micro college certainly is definitely a growth. Apprenticeships, very exciting to see that. Yes, boot camps and fellowships. So stackable, thank you for raising that word. It's great to see that. Now, I want to shift because we don't have that much time, because I want you to hear from each other. What do you expect to support in the future? This is a little bit of a tougher question. I'm curious if there are things that you're working on now that you haven't offered before, or that you think you're going to be doing more of. Very good. So more of you are working on stackable micro credentials. It's great to see this and to hear how you're describing it. And I think this is part of the challenge for us too, that how we describe this, these words, these terms, are they badges, are they certificates, are they credentials, are they micro credentials, are they full credentials, are they stackable, are they not? Even us, we deal with this all the time. Imagine how challenging this is for learners or for worker learners who are trying to determine where they should go and what they should do. Micro master's degrees, I love that term. Now here's a question for you, and it certainly is one that I've heard when I worked in higher education and I was working and serving working adults. How much can you leverage that non-degree coursework towards your degree? This too is one of the areas of opportunity within higher education. Nice. Very good. Thank you for everyone jumping into this so you can really get a sense of it, because there are some real pioneers. And those pioneers, by the way, are very likely going to be in the sessions today. We have an incredible collection of innovators. I took a look at the attendee list. So many of you are noting that you're doing a little bit of this, but you really want to increase support. Less than 10% of you feel that you have lots of options to leverage that non-degree coursework towards a degree. Also inspiring to see this. And finally, I want to come back to this point about our mission, because one of the most exciting things about working as a technologist in higher education is that we're not just about technology. We're here for a mission. And if you heard anything in the statistics that I shared, it's that we can do more. We can do more to improve the pathways between equity and education. And many people believe that one way we can achieve our institutional missions for diversity, equity, and inclusion is specifically through broadening the options and those paths. And not everyone has to believe that, but I thought it would be a good idea for you to get a sense of how your peers see that. Looks like we have time for one more question. And I think this is a good one to leave on, because I confess I have a goal as well, a little bit of a selfish goal, which I want to understand the barriers that you're finding. And we know that technology is not the only answer. Yes, so I was asking this question quite intentionally. What barriers you see to expanding these non-degree offerings within traditional higher education institutions? Resources, the norms, traditional culture. Again, technology is not the primary thing you've answered, but perhaps technology is a part of this. Lack of faculty interest, absolutely. Resources and culture. Yes, diversions from the primary market. It's challenging, certainly, to shift. Accreditation, thank you. I give a lot of credit to that answer and to how much it constrains us. I think all of these points are true. And with this, I think I will stop sharing my screen and come back to what you all just told me, which is that there's increasing demand, and you believe that offering these non-degree credentials is part of better achieving a mission, and a mission that all of us believe in and that is important around education for opportunity, particularly around making opportunity more available. And a lot of us mentioned the barrier of culture. So I think that too is a call to action for all of us, because we work within cultures where people do deeply value opportunity. They value access. So there is a cultural opportunity to make these connections. This isn't about an alternative revenue stream, although yes, it does provide an alternative revenue stream. Growing the opportunities and the offerings around education are very much at the heart of the mission of almost every higher education institution. So as you internally encounter challenges and barriers around change and around culture, I would ask you to think very much about how, in fact, this is a part of your mission. It's a part of why we're here. And with that, I want to thank you all so much for graciously listening and contributing your thoughts and your talent towards this, towards what we're doing to transform higher education and how we're learning from this time that we call the Great Resignation. And with that, Frank, I'd like to turn back to you.
All right. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Susan. I told you all Susan would teach us a whole lot about a whole lot. Thank you, Susan. It was great. And thank you for our attendees who engaged, right? How fun was it to engage towards the end there and see what we are all thinking, what's in our heads as a community. And we also got to hear from Puppy Dog, so loved it. Anyway, Susan, thank you so much for your time and inspiration and sharing your knowledge and perspective. One thing that I wrote down that I want to share is you said education is a path to equity and a need to grow those options. So higher ed community, we know what we need to do. So let's go do it. Thank you again, Susan, on behalf of the community, and loved having you, and thanks for your patience on our little blips, but hey, it's a virtual life, so we are who we are. So thanks a bunch. And thank you. All right, I am going to turn this over to Haley Gould. And Haley will then take you through a conversation with our premier sponsor and then take you off into the rest of the day. Thank you, Haley.
Yeah, well, thank you, Frank. You did a wonderful job there. And man, what a great keynote from Susan. Susan, that was just absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen here. I've got a couple of slides for us. Let me get that all set up. Hopefully you guys can see that as I've got that going. Today, well, actually, I should say, hello, everyone. My name is Haley Gould. I'm a member of the Higher Ed Advisory Council and a planning team member for Higher Ed. On behalf of the planning team, we hope you're enjoying yourself this morning. By the looks of the chat, I think we are accomplishing that goal. We've got a great schedule for you ahead, and in this session, we're going to take just about 9 more minutes to make sure that you know what's going to happen for the rest of the day, and that we have a nice little interview with our platinum sponsor, Huron. I'm really excited for this. It's my job today to give you a quick little rundown, make sure that you know what this event's going to look like, and I'm going to have you follow along with me as I show you one of my favorite tips for navigating around the platform. So if you will, if you look just below the Trailblazer community icon in the top left of your screen, there's a little icon. It kind of looks like an ID to me. If you click on that, it's going to give you a little pop-up of your session. And so if at any point in the day you want to look at what's coming up next, just make sure that you do that. I can see we've got some great sessions starting at 12:50. So just keep an eye on that. Note you can toggle between today's agenda and my agenda as well. I'm going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat during my talk. In our agenda today, though, you might notice that we're featuring a lot of updates from our sponsors, and I want to make sure to say thank you to them here as we get to talking. They're not only just waiting for you, hanging out in their booths, which you can get to at the top of the screen by clicking on booth, but they're also going to be participating in some really fun sessions today. You might notice that there's a demo jam and a 5 and 5 segment. These sessions are designed to introduce you to these sponsors with just a slightly different format. A demo jam is a head-to-head matchup where sponsors are going to demo their products back to back. We as attendees then get to vote for the best presentation, and the winner even gets to take home a trophy. A 5 and 5 is something that we as the Advisory Council made up as a quick interview style feature where sponsors are going to answer 5 questions, but with one catch. There's a timer on the screen, and they only have 5 minutes to do it. We thought that this might be a good time to showcase this format to you with our platinum sponsor, Huron Consulting. They're going to have 5 minutes to answer, and I'm just going to make sure that I enable them to come on our screen here. So give me one moment. Diane and Vince are going to join me any second now. Here we go. So they're going to have 5 minutes to answer some questions, and I believe these 2 folks who are joining me are going to switch off a little bit. So allow me to welcome from Huron Consulting, Vince Salvato and Ryan Clemens. Hey guys.
Hey Haley, how you doing?
Hey.
I'm doing okay, you know. Yeah.
Exciting day.
I'm excited to see all these people today.
Yeah,
How about
absolutely. I know it's been a lot of build up and a lot of time and effort by the committee and everyone. So just kudos to that. I kind of had some behind the scenes of just what it take to put this together, and it's not a small feat. So kudos to everyone. Yeah, and but really thank you guys for putting this together. This is amazing. Some great sessions. Susan was great. Some great information, and just some the sessions that are lined up today. It's going to be a great day.
We got some good ones.
Yeah.
I'm going to transition to sharing my screen again in a moment, but maybe before I do that, Vince, do you want to introduce yourself, and then Ryan will have you do the same after?
Sure. Great. Thanks, Haley. So Vince Salvato, Managing Director at Huron. Been here a little, about 4 years, and prior to that was with another firm, but have been in the Salesforce, I think, higher ed ecosystem since maybe around 2013, kind of the early days. I saw Kathy Lukeman mention the first Wayne State Higher Ed Summit, and just such a small group it was, and even the size of .org. So I've been in the ecosystem a bit, and just excited to see all the growth and everything going on. I lead up our leadership role with our overall Salesforce practice, but lead up specifically our Salesforce Higher Ed practice, and I'm based out of Phoenix. So again, happy to be here today.
And you, Ryan?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Ryan Clemens. I am a senior director here at Huron. Been here Well, coming up on 3.5 years, which is crazy because it feels just like yesterday when I was hanging out and member of the Higher Advisory Council, working with Arizona State University and helping working with Frank and doing all the cool stuff that they were doing. Now I get to kind of take that expertise in that journey and really help other schools do the same thing. So I also kind of play a higher a leadership role in our higher practice and focus on kind of clients that are really enterprise focused. So great to be here today.
Nice. All right. We're going to get to this 5 and 5. This is
All right.
5 minutes. I'm going to cut you off after 5.
No pressure.
You know?
No
We'll let
pressure.
you finish your thought, but you know.
Well,
yeah, no, you're good. So you guys will notice I've got a baseball card. This is what we call this for Huron up on my screen. I've got a timer with 5 minutes and then 5 questions that I'm going to ask. Whew. Deep breath, everybody. We ready?
Do it.
Okay. All right, Vince, tell us about your company.
So for those who know, Huron, we're a global consulting firm focused on a number of areas. Probably the largest people might know are higher ed and healthcare. Been around since 2002. Public company based in Chicago, but we have teams all over. You know, the higher ed team is based all over the country and even in Canada. But we have folks U.S., Canada, and all over EMEA. So yeah.
Nice. Tell us about your expertise in higher education.
Oh boy. Well, I think we're unique in that you know the higher ed team is just made up of these amazing folks, and you can see on the baseball card here of the folks that have come from higher ed institutions, you know, like Ryan, that have worked on Salesforce projects, both big and small, and we're able to bring that to the onto the team and bring that to our clients and bring that expertise, and it goes across all the different pillars that we have around recruitment, admissions, student experience, advancement, alumni relations, and into institution operations. So that whole student life cycle. And I think on top of that, not only the Salesforce team, but because of Huron's background within higher ed, we work very closely now, and that's been something that we've grown over the last several years, and it's just been amazing to where we have a lot of our education counterparts working with us on strategy. So we're not really just a Salesforce technical implementation partner. We're really kind of can really help in the overall digital transformation with their clients within higher ed, either on one of those pillars or the entire life cycle. And I think that's exciting for me and why we're here and what we're able to offer our clients. So it's it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Thanks, Vince.
Sure.
All right, Ryan, tell us about a recent higher ed implementation, something in the last 6 months to a year.
Awesome. Yeah. So we've got so many great stories. I'm going to touch base quickly on a few that really follow the life cycle of the student journey, right? So starting with some work we're doing with BU Questrom, where we're currently working with them to implement what started with just Admissions Connect. And then halfway through the project, they decided they wanted to throw Student Success up. I think generating one of the first orgs that may have both combined and working together, getting ready to go live with them. Which is a great feat there. Also implementing Blackthorn events with them. Secondly, focusing in on CSU San Marcos. Huron was actually one of, I think, 2 partners that were selected to create a quick start program to implement Student Success Hub. So we partnered with CSU San Marcos to do just that. We went live from project kickoff to people using the systems in 6 weeks, really bringing advisors and success coaches together in a single platform to help them meet some aggressive go live dates for the start of the semester. Kind of moving into the advancement space, we worked with Wisconsin Foundation Alumni Association and actually partnered with Salesforce.org through their V2 MOM process to do an evaluation and vendor selection, do a lot of pre-implementation activities and tool selections, and in preparation for a kickoff, which is actually starting, I think, here in about 2 weeks to actually start the 2-year-long implementation with that group. And last but not least, wanted to kind of give a little that's coming up next, but we also have an enterprise strategy offering where we come in for people that are really enterprise focused to take a evaluation of their current footprint and help them create a roadmap and a strategy to successfully implement large scale implementations Salesforce. So please go and check out Kyla's presentation that's coming up next to kind of learn how we helped her and all the awesome stuff they're doing there. So
awesome, man, all kinds of stuff. Yeah, what excites you about 2022?
Oh boy, let's see. Lots of things. Obviously Salesforce continues to innovate. Obviously there's that to see what's coming next, who they're going to buy maybe. But for me, maybe 2 things stand out. One being kind of Tableau CRM and Tableau. I had a call with Chris Chris Clark from Salesforce.org, I think last week, of just some of the accelerators that they have in Tableau available for like Admissions Connect, Student Success Hub, and even Office of the President to really show the power of what's there. I think as our clients mature with the platform, obviously getting that data in one place and then being able to, extend and do the analytics on top of that is the power of the platform. So that's exciting. And then Slack, I think we just are about to start a pilot leveraging Slack for student success and seeing how we can leverage that for, not only student success, but, even through the life cycle and to interact with our constituents and students. So that's to me, that's exciting. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. And then last question, what's the thing or activity that's kept you and your team sane during the pandemic?
Ooh, tough one. We started with some Zoom happy hours early on. We thought those were weekly, but that was 2 years ago. So we stopped those. I would say just the team itself. We have this amazing team and we collaborate quite a bit. And just, outside of even Zoom client calls, we're there for each other and we talk, and then we have, various sessions where, we'll vent or just talk about things outside of work, and that's helpful. And even our clients, we'll do that. We have great relationships with our clients and we love just to get on the, calls with them and just talk things, but just, there for each other to hopefully get through this and hopefully see a light at the end of the tunnel. So I don't know if Ryan, we're close on time. If Ryan has anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think really it's just this community, right? I know I can remember back when one of those happy hours was actually just spitballing ideas for this event, and look where we are today. And so I think just engaging is something that's really kind of helped keep me going, right? That and getting outside for walks with the dogs and the wife. So.
Oh yeah, that'll help. I remember that meeting, I think, but you guys did great on time. I stopped it because there's a really obnoxious timer. And just like with other folks later, when they do 5 and 5, we'll let them finish their thought.
Yeah.
We'll be nice. There won't be any hook or anything like that off the stage. But thank you guys for being our guinea pigs this morning and letting us go. I know, Joe, I'm like way nicer in the 5 and 5, but it's important to get those pandemic tips, which is the last question. So, Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. I'm going to just finish up here 1 more minute as I tell you to go ahead and navigate to your next session. There's a little bit of a trick to it. We want to make sure you're able to go to do whatever you're doing on your agenda, whether it be networking tables where you can engage with others, or booths where our sponsors like Huron are hanging out. If you're going to go to a session, there was a shout out for Kyla. I know there's also University of Miami, which is a Huron customer as well. They're presenting a few times today, so feel free to go and check those out. All you want to do is click on either the agenda tab at the very top to leave this session. You can also click on the back button in your browser if that's easier for you. We hope you have a great time at Higher Ed Dreamin' today. And on behalf of the planning team, thank you so much.